going to be completing the practical called making salts. So for this practical, what you will need is a Bunsen burner, a heat-proof mat, a tripod and a gauze, which I've already got set up here. You're also going to need some copper 2 oxide powder with a spatula to pick it up with. You will need 40 millilitres of 1 molar sulfuric acid. 1 molar means that's the concentration. It's 1 mole per decimetre cubed. And that's also an irritant, so we need to be very careful when we're handling these chemicals. Copper oxide, also irritant and hazardous to the environment. So, fairly dangerous stuff. We're not going to be pouring any of this down the sink. We're also not going to be pouring any of this all over our hands or all over our friends, because that wouldn't be very friendly. We're also going to need a glass rod to stir what we're going to be putting together in a minute. You'll need 2 glass beakers, one of them empty and one of them filled, doesn't matter how much, about 200 ml of warm water. You're going to need a funnel and some filter paper, which I've already folded up and popped in there, a conical flask and an evaporating basin. So the first thing we're going to be doing is heating up our acid. So you pop your empty glass beaker on there. We're not going to put it empty for too long on our Bunsen burner, otherwise it can crack. Pour all of your acid in. Now the point of heating up our acid is that it ensures that more copper oxide powder will dissolve in it. We want as much copper oxide powder in here as possible. While that's heating up, I can now start to put a couple of spatulas of copper oxide in. When you first put the copper oxide in, it will look black. It will look like you've got a black cloud in there. Give it a couple of stirs and the solution will start to go a bluey green colour when the acid has heated up enough. This is because the solution that will be formed is that colour. We keep stirring until it forms that nice blue colour, but that's not the colour we want to end up with. In this reaction, what we're producing from our copper oxide and our sulfuric acid is copper sulfate, which is green, that bluey-green colour, and some water. We don't want to have any unreacted sulfuric acid at the end. The goal of this is to purify copper sulfate crystals, and if you have got acid in that mix when you're trying to evaporate it at the end, it won't work properly. Now I'm starting to form my blue-green colour. You might be able to see it is now sort of a very nice aquamarine turquoise. Sometimes it's a slightly different colour, it just depends how much you've got in there. When you've got that blue-green colour, you just keep adding your copper oxide. We want the copper oxide to be in excess, is what it's called, and that means that we've got unreacted copper oxide, but we haven't necessarily got any unreacted sulfuric acid. So I'm just going to pop loads in and keep stirring. It should have reacted all the acid by now. My acid is starting to boil, so what I'm going to do is move my Bunsen burner away. You see I've got it on the yellow flame here. I don't want to heat it up too much, because if this acid spits, that's not a good thing, because it will be spitting all over your face, all over your clothes, then you'll be covered in acid, which nobody wants. Okay, so this has been really, really hot now. It's still got some undissolved copper oxide, so now I know that there is no more sulfuric acid in there. It's all reacted with the copper oxide. I have got with me a damp cloth. Now I've got this because I don't want to pick that up with my bare hands. If you're doing it, you leave it a little bit so that it cools down, because we don't want to burn ourselves, but I'm going to pick it up with this. So what I'm going to do is pick it up. Then I'm going to filter it through my funnel, my filter paper, into my conical flask. Okay, now I've got lots lots of residue in there. I'm going to dispose of that safely and not put it down the sink, because remember, that is harmful to wildlife. And coming out of this conical flask, I have this beautiful blue liquid. That is now copper sulfate dissolved in pure water. Any spare copper oxide powder that I had is collected on the inside of the filter paper, so it looks like I've got lots of black powder in there. We wait for it all to funnel through, and then we're going to place it into this evaporating basin. While that happens, I'm going to explain what this is for. Remember the beaker with the warm water? This is going to act like a water bath. We're going to pop that over the Bunsen burner, ready to heat up. You can turn it to blue flame now if you want. So we've got our blue flame, we've got our water heating up. The reason for the water bath is these can get very, very hot very quickly, and we don't want any of that stuff spitting at us, because if we've got copper sulfate and water spitting at our faces, or our friends' faces, that's not good, because we're going to get holes in our faces. So, there we go, evaporating dish goes in there. Now this is finished, there's no more drips. So I'm going to pour it carefully, not too quickly, don't want to spill it over, into my evaporating basin. This next step can take quite a while. What you want to do is evaporate off some of the water that we've got in here. You want to wait till it's about a third full, so you've evaporated off 2/3 of the water. After that's happened, you take the remaining liquid and you pop it on the side for a day or two, somewhere where there's near a window so there's light coming in. That's going to let the water evaporate nice and slowly, and we should form some lovely big